Welcome to the Pivot Experience podcast, where leadership transformation isn't just a concept, it's a journey we take together. This is where real leaders share real stories about the moments that changed everything. In each episode, we dive deep into the pivotal experiences that transformed good leaders into great ones. Whether you're a seasoned executive, a rising star in your organization, or someone ready to take that next big step in your leadership journey, you're in the right place. Get ready to learn, grow, and maybe even find that spark that ignites your own leadership pivot. This is the Pivot Experience podcast, where your next breakthrough starts here.
Hey guys, what's up? It's your friend, Pastor John R. Adolph from the Antioch Church in Beaumont, Texas. Hey, listen, do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe this channel so you can continue to pivot into your next.
What's up and what's happening, TPE family? We're back with another episode of the Pivot Experience podcast, where our aim and goal is to help leaders pivot into their next. My name is Alex Seal, and I've had 23 years worth of experience working for the world's most caring brand. And in that time frame, I've had the opportunity to learn a whole lot about business, a whole lot about entrepreneurship. And really, that is the genesis of this podcast. I like to get into conversation with people who I feel like have the same ambitions that I do, and as creative and innovative as I am, and the people who participate in this business. And on today's show, it's going to be no different. I've been on LinkedIn in a serious capacity for maybe the last year and a half, 2 years. And I was jokingly saying this on one of our other segments on Lead Better, that there's this circle of people you keep running into on LinkedIn. Like, you just keep bumping into their content, and they're creating value. They're creating a stir in a space. When they say something, it gets people's attention. And I just kept seeing this young lady's content on LinkedIn, and I had to muster up some bravery to see. I said, you know what? All she can do is say no, right? Only thing, she tells me no, I just keep it moving. And, I was lucky enough, we were fortunate enough to be able to attract the attention and have the guest, her be a guest on our show. And I'm talking about Mariah Millner. How are you doing today, ma'am?
I am fantastic, Alex. Thank you for such a warm welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. I have loved just following your content. I think the latest episode was with Deanne Turner, no pressure, but that's amazing. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, no, definitely appreciate that. Yeah, no, I had a great time with Deanne, and I'm sure I'm going to have a great time with you as well. Both of you guys, holding a office at the support center. There's always, number one, an immense amount of value that I'm sure you're going to bring to the table. But just as you might think there's pressure on me. I've been around for a while, and I know what it means to talk to people that work on Buffington Road, and so I never take that opportunity for granted. I will always want to be very respectful and trying to extract the most amount of value that we can from those conversations. And so I want to start this conversation off by, maybe if you can give us your elevator pitch, or what's your intro? Who is Mariah, and what you're about?
I'm such a multifaceted individual, but what's most important to me, something that if I had a label on my forehead, it would be disciple. Helping other people realize their love for Christ and that He loves them is something that is very important to me. And I'm also very passionate about family. I just became a mom. I have a 2-month-old daughter. Her name is Braylon. And this new journey, this new just role that I'm playing is just incredible in what I'm learning about myself. I'm also an entrepreneur. I have my own small business. It's in the health and beauty industry. It's called Suche Beauty. And it's an opportunity for me to create and make things that are good for your body and help give you that good skin that you want. And I've been married for going on 6 years to my husband, Brad, and he's a restaurant leader at Chick-fil-A in Decatur, Georgia. And I've been with Chick-fil-A now, this will be 11 years. And it was my first job. And, at first it was an opportunity for me to build community and be in a space where I could feel safe and feel loved and be nurtured as a young person. And it became something so much bigger, so much greater, originally from Atlanta. So I've really loved this brand for a long time. And it's been a pleasure getting to be with it for as long as I have.
Awesome. So I definitely love talking to people who have, and no offense to anybody when I say this, when they've been around the brand for 10 plus years, you've seen, I don't want to say the metamorphosis, you've seen the way we used to do things versus the way we do now. And so there's always just this camaraderie that exists amongst people who have been around for that long. So, so I'm so glad that we've crossed paths. And so I guess if you can maybe entertain this question, how did you end up going the corporate route? And I know we don't use that word anymore, the support center route, but I always use that as a point of reference for those who are outside of the Chick-fil-A universe. It's more, acceptable to hear that. But how did you end up at a position at the support center?
It's funny because when I was working in the restaurant in Roswell, Georgia, I had no idea that a support center even existed. This was between the years of 2011 and 2015 because I was so engulfed in the restaurant. And I wanted to be an operator. That's all I saw. That's all I thought the ceiling was operator. And when I left that location and worked for a second operator here in Stone Mountain, Georgia, where I currently live, my operator, he introduced me to the talent development program because leaving the brand and coming back, rediscovering some things, I realized that operator may not be the best route for me to grow with Chick-fil-A. But there were so many opportunities where I could serve team members and operators in an innovative way as a support center staff member, but I needed experience. I was not competitive enough as a candidate at the time to have a full-time staff role. And so I ended up going into TDP, which exposed me to the support center, to the culture of the support center, because it's different. Mm-hmm. It's under the same umbrella as Chick-fil-A, but it has a different culture than the restaurant. And getting to network and build community and really discover my strengths and skill sets and what that could look like in a role that still was close to the field, but not in the field as an operator. So that's what really led me to the support center.
Yeah, I bet there's a challenge for a lot of people who reach that point in their career when they're looking at the fork in the road, right? Do I become an operator? Because to your point, most of us are introduced to Chick-fil-A through the power of local ownership, the power of having an operator that's involved and doing all the cool things. And you can see yourself doing that. But I guess as you get older and the responsibilities change, and then again, that exposure, I remember the first time I went to the support center and I was there for a team leader event that they used to have these team leader summits years ago. And I walked in and I walked up to Dan Cathy. It was like meeting a legend and meeting Dan Cathy. And he looked at my name badge and he saw my restaurant number. And he saw the name and he was like, "Oh, you work for such and such." Like he just to me, I was mind blown as a 18, 19-year-old. This guy sits at the top of the organization and can call my operator by name just by looking at the unit number and the restaurant number. Now I know a little bit more now. Maybe that might have been a little easier of a feat 15 years ago, but it's just the impression that it made upon me that the people that work at the support center care so much about what happens, at the restaurant level, that it was always an idea to say, man, what does it look like to be a business consultant? I know they have new names now, but what would it look like to do one of those things? So I can definitely see how you had that moment in the road. That kind of speaks to what, I'm doing now. This is my alternative to that, maybe facing that adventure. So no, that's cool. So appreciate you giving us that introduction. So there's something that struck me on your profile. You called yourself a creative equalizer, right? And so I'm curious to know, can you tell me an example of where that name came from? Like, how did your creativity help balance these competing needs in the organization while strengthening team culture?
Absolutely. So the assessment standout is where I got that term from, creative equalizer. I took that assessment and that's where I ranked. And, at Chick-fil-A, whether you're in the restaurant or at the support center, we love personality assessments. And that assessment showed me that I love to innovate and find the balance in creating things that are new while also sustaining what has worked in the past. And, Chick-fil-A is growing so fast, exponentially. And you have to find the balance of being creative, being innovative, keeping up with the trends of the QSR industry while also staying true to our roots and staying true to what keeps us set apart as a brand. And I knew that I could do that as a trainer, as a facilitator, by always finding unique ways to embed our culture in the facilitation, whether that's using historical data or using historical moments with Chick-fil-A in my sessions, whether that was around hospitality or food safety or just menu experience, and really connecting my learners with what makes our brand so unique while utilizing different games or interactive moments to keep people engaged while staying true to what makes Chick-fil-A Chick-fil-A.
No, and I would almost gather the bet those first few years, those first 4 to 5 years being exposed to the brand probably plays into your ability to speak into some of those historical moments. Because I think during the time which you were working, which I was working as well, it was like Chick-fil-A is really starting to turn the corner, like in terms of just that real mainstream popularity. And I think there was a lot of pivotal decisions that was made during that time that you can draw from. Like I know, like I always. And I'm fortunate to have worked during that time, so you can pull from those experiences, even though the volumes were different, right? We're doing half of what we did, doing now versus then. But it's just that how do we get here? What are those core things, those core, they call them tent poles and guardrails. But, before we had those names and that verbiage, we just had some core values that we all kind of abided by, whether they were explicitly written or not. And so, no, I love that, and I really identify with that. Like, I feel like that's one of my most valuable components to my organization is that, hey, I was here, I seen it, I saw some things. Not to say what you're saying isn't right, but I've seen some things. And how can we build off of what you're saying in today's generation and what I used to experience back then? Because I know you guys might be experiencing this at the support center. This is some of the most multi-generational workforces or workplaces that we've had the opportunity to work in. You might have people 2 or 3 generations after you, I'm sorry, not after you, before you, that you're working with currently, and then maybe 1 or 2 before you, and having to navigate those things. So I think you playing that, hey, I understand the historical context while being innovative will bode well in those different environments. So I love that answer. And so throughout the 5 years that you've been, working at corporate, right? How has your approach streamlined, like, over the years, like in terms of like evolving processes, evolving systems? Like, how is that creative approach? How are you using that to help build better systems in your role at the support center?
The first thing that comes to mind is AI. I know Deanne touched on this in her call with you around, like, when you think about the next 10 years, like, what does the talent space look like? How is it going to be impacted? And, AI is something that has, just really helped me streamline some processes around communication. Because in my role, I'm constantly utilizing verbal and written communication that is normally repetitive and sometimes has to be, edited depending on what season we're in with the word. And so AI has really helped me with tone of voice, with intention, with being short and sweet, being able to really help condense communication as well, and take the overthinking out of that process and be able to help just provide more capacity in such a small area. But communication is so important when it comes to training and getting people ready and excited for how they're going to learn and onboard. So AI is something that learning and development at Chick-fil-A is heavily passionate about, and really trying to wrap our heads around, like, how can we navigate AI with confidence and with just caution as we protect the brand of Chick-fil-A while also keeping up with how AI is going to help us propel forward.
So I'm so glad you said that, because there's this tension in the workplace where AI, it's almost not taboo to use AI, but the operator that I work for, it's 40 plus years in the game, and it's almost like you cheated. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like you cheated if you use AI. And my theory is like anything that I use to the AI produces on my behalf, I have the capacity to put all those words on paper. Like it's taking my time from an hour of doing that to 5 minutes, if that,
Mhm.
and some refinement. And so, it's accelerated, the amount of work that I can get done. It's increased capacity. And so I'm so glad you and Deanne echoed that, because it's like almost like, hey, are we using AI too much? It's like, no, I don't think there's a over usage of it. If you are monitoring what it's saying, if you actually go, it's one thing just to get it to make something, you don't even read it, and then you just put it out. I think that's a little reckless, and I think that's negligent. But I think if we're using it in a way that we're we're training it, because I think a lot of people don't realize you're training the AI to develop a voice. The more you use it, depending on the platform, of course, right? But it's awesome to hear that you guys are embracing that at the support center. I recently did a event here in Houston, in the Houston area rather, and there was a guy that was an LDP, and he was on staff rotations with one of the financial consultants, and he was talking about how they were using AI models to do certain forecasting. I was like, that's encouraging to hear, because it's almost like we don't do that. And I know that is going to accelerate the rate that we do work. And like, the more we resist it, it's coming. Actually, it's not even, it's here. It's here. So the more we resist it, the further behind we're going to be from it. I'm sure when the .com era boomed, there was a lot of resistance to it, but like, where will we be without the internet? Where will we be without these smartphones and social media? And so things are moving forward, and I'm so glad that you just talked about how you guys are embracing it at the support center level. I especially have to think those guys that work in IT are definitely leveraging AI to be able to get certain things done much faster than they would before. So no, that's
I could speak a little bit more, Alex, just around what is happening. You just inspired me to just touch on this a little bit further, but Chick-fil-A has actually created, its own chat GBT platform called Tango. And it's a safe way for Chick-fil-A staff to leverage AI without worrying about proprietary information getting leaked or, getting misused by using a more public platform. And another example of how I've been able to evolve a process is summarizing data. So when we have users give us feedback on their learning experience, instead of combing through all of these verbatims and trends and manually putting that into a summary, I can use artificial intelligence to provide me with a very detailed and high level summary that I can provide to stakeholders, that I can provide to others that I'm working with to help drive change and provide information that we need to improve the learner experience.
No, and again, another high level moment for me, and as it relates to just how we're using AI, it's awesome to hear that you guys have your own. And I'm not gonna lie to you, when I heard the guy say it, I was in passing. He was talking to Todd Urquhart. That's the guy who was traveling with, and I was like, that don't sound like they're using some generic out of the box solution. That sounds like something internal that they've got over there. Maybe I shouldn't be privy to it, but you've just kind of confirmed that there's something there. But no, I tell people all the time, it's like, well, I can use the calculator to do certain things. I know how to do it. I've been to the point, I'll come from the era where we'll use pencil and paper. I get how to do the math, but if I can just put it in and have the answer in a fraction of the time in which it'll take me, like, I can move on to something else. My time then becomes more valuable. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. It's particularly like for you, and this is going to segue into our next question, but like you have your role at the support center and you're managing a business, you're fighting for time. And hold on, you're a new mother. Mm. And I would say, just from where I'm at, and I hope this doesn't land wrong, relatively still new to marriage. It's like, so like you're still living a young life. I've been I'm close to 15 years of marriage, and so now I've got 3 kids, and so I've got I get, you're at 2 months. Oh, I can't wait to if I'm in proximity to see what 18 months looks like, to see what 36 months look like. You know what I'm saying? So in terms of that tug on time, but the fact that I wish I would have had AI around when we had the first, second, third, like my baby my youngest just turned 4 years old, and it's like, now I'm leveraging these things to get things done faster. But it's like, man, if I would have had that back then, I would have been more available, more present, more a lot of things, because you just wouldn't have been able to have the time. So, I don't want to make the whole interview about AI, but I love the fact that you guys are using that. And then again, as you are developing this brand, this beauty brand, and you're continuing to be a boss at your role at the support center, I'm sure AI is playing a role. But like, how do you adapt to both of those things? I'm sure Mariah is one person for the support center, and you've got your own flavor and twist that you're putting on your beauty brand. How do you manage those two? How do you go back? How do you go in and out of those two lanes?
I'll be honest with you, there's a merge in the lanes.
Come on.
It gets exhausting, Alex, having to constantly be in a different lane with the different hats that you wear. And as I've matured, not only in knowing myself and my brand, I've realized that there doesn't have to be a switch, because there are commonalities in what Mariah at the support center needs to give, in addition to business owner. I still have to be hospitable with every person I come in contact with, whether that's people that I'm collaborating with on the job or customers that want to support my business. I still have to be consistent in paying attention to detail and being willing to innovate and pivot, like what I did there. And, building relationships. And so I feel like as a leader in both of those spaces, being able to show up authentically in both and having that merger is it's so healthy for me, because I'm not having to overanalyze or over-index myself by having to change or switch things up. QSR industry, different than the health and beauty industry, but there's so many things that are still aligned. Being consistent with a good product, treating your guests and customers with excellence consistently, and being willing to innovate and pivot constantly to set yourself apart and propel the brand forward.
No, I love that, and we're being transparent and honest here. I think this is probably, you said that merger, like the last 3 or 4 years of my life probably has been the most merged on all fronts that I've had in a long time. Being around the brand, you used to think that you had to kind of toe the line in a certain capacity when you were in certain rooms, or like, when you're representing. Now, granted, you do. I mean, you can't get crazy, but like you used to, there was a muzzle that you would put on certain things or certain attributes or certain areas of your life that you wouldn't put on display. These days, I don't find myself doing that near as often as I used to, and it's working out for me. And then you're right.
Don't it feel good?
It's peace. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's peace.
I've realized, Alex, that the more I use discernment, but the more that I am freely walking into who God has called me to be in both of those areas, not only am I thriving, but people around me are getting a ripple effect of that thriveness. Thriveness may not be a word, but we're going to use it.
Yeah, no, I was right there with you. I was ready to drop something in the plate. It's all good. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. And I guess we're kind of touching on a topic where I want to take the conversation, and I want to be respectful of your time. So I want to make sure that we clear culture. And I think one of the biggest things that it sounds like you do is manage culture. You manage, help diagnose culture. How do you identify when a team's culture needs to be strengthened? And like, what do you have any frameworks or tips for teams to use to be able to get to where you need to be as it relates to culture?
Culture is something that I am dramatically passionate about. It is by design, not by default. That is something that we learned about at Next a few years back. And some areas that I look at when, culture needs to be assessed is there's a lack of innovation. When people on the team are just doing what we've always been doing, and it's normal and it's not changing, and people have a lack of energy in wanting to change, that's where I see there's a culture cancer. a lack of ownership and accountability. No one wanting to raise their hand and take a risk and say, I will do it, I will own it, I will take responsibility. Or if we are struggling in an area, no one having the courage or the trust in the team to say, you know what, I messed up. I'm responsible for this misstep. And then lastly, passive aggressiveness is another area of culture needs strengthening when people are not able to be directly open and honest with care, radical candor, and say, hey, like, this is not working. This is something I'm struggling with. This is something that you've done to me. Can we fix it? And a model that is, tried and true, it's been around for a long, long time, is the ESRC model. And I'm sure you're familiar with it, Alex. And it breaks it down. E is for expectations. Like, does the team understand what is expected of them to perform at their best, to have direction and clarity? Skills. Do I have the capabilities to meet those expectations and be confident in performing in my role? And then third, resources. As a business owner, as an organization, am I providing my team with what they need to thrive?
Yeah.
And then lastly, consequences. Are there areas of opportunity that we focus on when these expectations aren't being met?
No, I love that. I think you hit the nail on the head. Now, I want to clear out and give you the opportunity to really talk about your business. I know we have touched on it since we've been talking, but I really want to give you an opportunity to talk about, what your brand is about. I know you mentioned some things before we got on, so if you want to mention that, cool too. But like, what is your purpose? What are you attempting to do? And how are you going out here helping people in the area of beauty?
Yes, thank you. When I was little, I remember volunteering with my mother at a nursing home right across from the MLK Memorial Center in downtown Atlanta. And we were in the hospice area of the nursing home, and we would visit elderly men and women who didn't have family to come and see them. So I had about 5, 10, 15 grandmas and grandpas up in there. And one thing that I love to do as a young child is paint the nails of the elderly women in there. And from that early start of life is where my passion for serving others ignited. And over time, I've always just loved self-care. I've always enjoyed, going to the spa or getting a nice manicure. And one thing that I've always enjoyed too is doing that with products that are safe for your body. You look at certain things, certain brands, and you look at the back of the label, and it's like, I can't pronounce not a thing on this label, except the second ingredient is water. And that inspired me to want to create a body care line where everything you see on the label, you know what it is. It might even be in your kitchen. You could probably eat it. Some of the ingredients that are on the label, because that's how safe it is. And during COVID, I was in the talent development program, and trainings completely halted. We weren't in person. We had to pivot virtually, and work was slowing down. And it provided a lot of capacity to really think about my passions and my business. And that's where I started Souchez Beauty, was during the pandemic, really having time to create a product line and get different ingredients, mix them together, what works, what didn't work. And from there, I developed a website. So I'm an online business, e-commerce business. And I just love getting to create products that make people happy. Right. And it dawned on me that this happiness needs to spill over in a unique way that can give back to the community. And the Dwarf House, which is a women's shelter, women and children's shelter in Roswell, Georgia, and the City of Refuge, which partners directly with Chick-fil-A, were two organizations that I knew I wanted to support with my business. So every sale that I make with Souchez Beauty, 10% of those sales go towards those organizations.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you. Get kudos to you for building, patterning yourself of becoming a meaningful brand by putting your capital, your financial resources back into the places where they need it. And I think that's not to say that you got this from this, but I'm just thinking out loud. Like, one of the things I love about working for Chick-fil-A, you've just been shown how to do business the right way.
Yes.
You've been shown how to do business the right way, whether you were the proprietor or you were partnering with the support center and as an operator or working there. Like, you see clear examples. Like, I love, listening to the Kathy family talk about how they go about doing business, because it's giving us an example of things we may not have seen in our natural lives, and being able to take those things and incorporate them into our communities is something special, man. I think about it all the time. Like, I know business people in my area, and they're doing a great job. It's just, you don't understand this little fast food operation and how much we've learned to do things at a much more excellent level. And so thank you so much. We can't get out of here without this one last thing. And I'm mindful. I've been watching my clock, so I got you.
This has been great. Look, I've enjoyed spending time here with you.
I appreciate that. And so the last thing I would like to do is a relatively new segment. We've been doing this in our Lead Better, which is a free virtual thing that we do on every fourth Sunday of the month, which is live. But I brought it to these, and I think it's been pretty cool. So it's a game called Tug of War, and I'm going to give you two words that you seemingly can't do business without or go throughout leadership without, but you got to pick one and give me the reason why you picked the one. So are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. So first set of words is empathy or accountability.
Empathy.
Okay.
Empathy. I can't go without empathy, because at the end of the day, it's people over profits.
Mm-hmm.
And people are what drive the business forward. And the more you can put yourself in your people's shoes, the more your business can thrive.
Excellent. I might know the answers to this one, but we'll see. Innovation or consistency?
Oh, innovation.
Yeah.
I think you knew I was going to go there.
Yeah.
I love change, and I love being able to do things differently.
All right. Clear expectations or freedom?
Clear expectations, because there could be freedom woven in that. If you give me clear expectations, I have the freedom to then meet those expectations in how I execute.
All right. Last but certainly not least, results or relationships?
Oh, relationships. Definitely relationships. I'm a people person. My why is to build community amongst others and inspire individuals to reach their full potential. And you can't do that without relationships.
No, I definitely agree. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time out. I know the your 2-month-old is needing your attention. So before we get out, and your husband, of course, for sure. Before we get out of here, how can someone get connected to you? Where can they meet with you? Not meet with you, but just get in your presence in terms from a social media standpoint.
Yes, thank you for that. And I would also encourage meeting with me, Chick-fil-A family. Anyone that would like to come and visit the support center. If you're a restaurant leader looking to expose yourself, Adobe Guacam, who's an operator in California, did that for me and opened my eyes to that environment. So I'm open to that, to anyone that's listening as well. Just let me know. But I am on LinkedIn under my name. So give me a follow. I would love to follow you back. And my content is focused on leadership, community building, and the restaurant business. And so that's where you can find me. And my website, which is currently souchebeauty.com, is also in my LinkedIn bio. So feel free to click there and see if you want to, support and buy some things that can help the community of underprivileged families as well.
Man, small world. I think my operator did a grand opening with Adobe several years ago in our area, and she was the GOS, and so I've kind of kept tabs on her a little bit since that interaction. But thank you so much for joining the show, TPE family. We have another one. I am blessed and fortunate to be able to have these conversations that I feel like are intriguing, that are pivotal, and that will ultimately add value to your leadership story. And so if you didn't gain any of that from this, I don't know what you're doing. Maybe you need to rewind it or something. something. But anyway, TPE family, until next time, peace. And we are done.
Hey guys, what's up? It's your friend, Pastor John R. Adolph from the Antioch Church in Beaumont, Texas. And I just want to slip this in right quick so you'll never forget. It's all about progress over perfection here at TPE.
Tap into the Pivot Experience where we help young, hungry entrepreneurs move on to the next step.